dear listeners, and salutations. I'm Tom Vassell.
I am Z Garcia.
The Z, the third.
I am the third, but I like to be known as the only.
Yeah. So today we're talking about 3 abstract strategy games, which we do a lot. We talk about abstract strategy games.
We like them.
But these, we're calling them pretentious because they made us laugh with how they came across. And maybe they didn't come across, maybe they're not meant to be pretentious, and in fact, I'm sure in the comments people say they're not. But the fact of the matter is, I think to ordinary game players, which I think we are, they came across a little pretentious. Anyway, but we're going to give 2 ratings. We're going to give them a rating on how much we like the games.
Yes.
And then how pretentious they are.
Yes.
Okay. So the first game today is A Gentle Rain, a small little game from Incredible Dream, and I was pretty pumped about this one.
Well, Incredible Dream has been on fire lately. They are the company
that... Quin fire.
Oh, I applaud you, sir. They do wonderful productions, really neat world building. This is very much outside of their wheelhouse, if you could say it that way. With the tiles and the tokens, and that's all you get. Show them a little bit of how this goes.
Yeah, this game is a game where you have tiles that have four different flowers on the sides of the tile. I believe there is 8 different ones total, or 7. I don't know.
8, yeah.
8 different. So it's a solo game, although the rules say you can play with more people. You're just essentially all playing a solo game.
Yes.
And you turn over tile one at a time. You have to match one of the flowers on it. And then when you make a group of 4, you can stick a little token in there in between, which in their deluxe production's a beautiful little, I call it a bath soap. That's what it looks like.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
And then once you put all these tokens in, you then count up the number of tiles left, add the tokens you got in the board, and you get points for that. So it's about, you can get, I think they said 21 points. That's almost impossible.
That'd be a perfect game, right, I guess? Yeah. So these look like just a little wooden disc with a screen-printed flower on there in this normal edition, and a very small box, too.
Now, the rules of this game, they start out by saying, it's a pretty short game. They start out by saying, get comfortable, change into loose clothing if you can, put on some soft music, make yourself tea or hot cocoa, take a moment to stand up and stretch and roll the stress out of your shoulders, inhale through your nose, hold that breath for a moment, then exhale through your mouth, which, just as a heads up, you can do before any game in existence,
yes,
all that stuff.
But no other game that I'm aware of has it as step number 1 of their rules. This is not the theme of the game, okay? This is not in the blurb of the game. They have that. The blurb is right here. You have come to a lakeside hoping to see a rare and beautiful sight. That's the blurb. That's the world building. This is step number 1 of the rules. Because step number 2 is you'll need a flat surface to play on, place the blossom tokens nearby, like gameplay stuff.
Yeah, but it even ends that way. They're kind of like, don't worry if you don't get them all out. You can always come again. It's the journey that matters, not the destination. As you play, admire the view of the lake and be glad for the company of your friends. Okay, so there are games out there that we have talked about in the past where they are a kind of peaceful, zen-like experience.
Yes.
Tokaido's often brought up on that one. And there's some games out there. This one, well, it's not. It just isn't. You're playing these tiles, and if you're going to play this well, you need to memorize the tiles. I'm sorry. That's just the way that is.
You need to know combinations of things that might or might not still come up.
So you're looking at the combinations, but there's also a lot of just guessing. Like when you make a grid of 4, it says you can put in any of the 4 flowers that's there.
Yes.
So in the future, at your number of flowers, you have 8 different flowers, they're going to diminish. So you need to decide what you're going to put where.
Yes.
But you're just guessing. The only thing that you could do is you could say, well,
I've seen more yellow, so I should probably put yellow out now because it's likely to come up less later. You'd have to, think about these things in a non-relaxing, cozy kind of way. You got to math it out if you want to do well. If you don't want to do well, and the journey is more important than the destination, then why am I scoring?
Yeah, it's just kind of like, why is it even here? You're just placing tiles out. I don't know that it's necessarily a bad game. My rating for the game is, 5 out of 10, which is, I guess, bad. I don't hate it. It's just kind of like, I played multiple times, and each time, I don't know what I did. I just put out some tiles, and then I started thinking hard about it, which is contrary to the theme.
Yes.
And that didn't really change anything. Now, I think if I had every tile memorized, I could figure out I could do it better in my head. At that point, I'm becoming a computer, which I think is against it. Pretentious-wise...
feels like, again, against the spirit of the thing. Trying to memorize the tiles, trying to get better.
Yeah. And pretentious-wise, and all these are going to be ranked highly in pretentiousness, otherwise they wouldn't make the list. So this one is a 6 out of 10, which is... And you know what? It's probably like a 9 out of 10, actually. But I'm comparing it to the other ones we're doing today.
Okay, interesting.
Maybe a 7. I'll do a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay, so for me, the gameplay here, I'm giving a 6 out of 10. And I'll tell you what, I bought into the whole thing. I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna buy into what you're selling here. I did the thing. I took the time. I did the, breathing exercises at the top. I enjoyed the feel of the tiles. I took my time with it, and it still is just not that relaxing because I don't think the activity is particularly relaxing. It's a little more taxing than I think a game that sells itself as literally. Let me read some of these things on the cover here. A cozy game for one or more minds in need of a soothing reset. I did not think this game felt like a reset.
Not at all.
After 2 or 3 turns, where where you can place is obvious, the options open up, like where you can place a tile now takes a while to discern all the places it could go. I don't find that relaxing, that sort of visual search for something, maybe you do, maybe you will, I found that to be just not a relaxing game. And again, at the end, and I did well in the gameplay of it.
Better than me.
Yeah, but at the end of the game, at the end of the day, I'm looking at these tiles that have a nice little printing on the back, but the whole thing and the material wasn't luxurious. This game doesn't feel luxurious. And maybe if it was, it would sell me on that whole, this is an elegant, soothing experience. It didn't manage to do that, unfortunately. For me, the game gets a 6 out of 10. The pretentious rating, I'm giving this one an 8.
Okay.
For having the audacity to make that rule number 1 instead of just flavor text, and for little writings on the box like this. It just feels really pretentious.
Philosophy.
Oh my.
And in this game, in which you have a board that looks like this, and 2 sides, and then really gorgeous tiles. I mean, these are beautiful tiles that you're going to be placing on the board, and they're going to be pushing around the other tiles. Whenever you put a tile down, there's a possibility, and in fact, almost likely, because you need to do it to win the game,
yes,
to push another tile somehow. It might push, might pull in some way, and you're trying to get 3 in a row. The game itself, though, in this rule book, they're talking about how this is an abstract game about having a conversation with a friend. Your goal is to reach a conclusion by connecting 3 of your ideas in a row. And every time you place something on the board, it's symbolizing conversation space and how ideas are forgotten by being pushed off the board, because you can do that. You can push things off the board. Oh. And they even have a conversation here, which is, wow, what a great idea. I totally agree. I can't believe I didn't think of that. Yeah, I really wasn't sure how to persuade you. I was planning to push this topic, but the way you rephrased some of your existing ideas was really convincing. Cool conversation. I liked it too. First of all, that conversation, which is between these 2 people, one of them's a fox.
One of them is an anthropomorphic
And I think they needed
fox
to put the anthropomorphic fox in there because never in my life have anyone ever had a conversation that was that stilted.
No, right.
We've discussed things before, and if you're like trying to have a good conversation, you might go, I never thought of that. But still someone will say something, you'll go, no, actually. And at the end, you don't go, cool conversation. Yeah. So
if you say to somebody, cool conversation, they will definitely be like, yo, what's up?
So anyhow, that's what this game is. And the game is, unfortunately for me, there's a lot of symbols in the game about pushing and pulling, and I would forget what they are. But the game comes with a piece here that is called respect. And this piece doesn't have any gameplay at all. Basically, it says when your fellow player presents a particularly clever idea, which doesn't even exist because the game doesn't say you're supposed to be putting down an argument when you play a piece.
You don't actually make an argument. That's the thing.
No, you don't.
That's the theme in the game. That's not gameplay. Like, we're not actually having a conversation. The board and the pieces represent a conversation. And then they go above and beyond and give you a piece, a beautiful plastic piece that they say you give to the other player when they make a particularly good move. And don't be too hasty to pass this, they mention.
Yeah,
this is important. This matters. When you give it to the other person and you say, I respect you. That was a particularly good move. In this non-conversation abstract we're playing.
Which is about like a 15-minute game anyway. And the designer themselves said, personally, I don't play this token offhandedly. I like to have it given only once per game, then one has to sit with it and explore what it feels like. For me, this circumstance motivates a much deeper contemplation before respect is given, and as a result, lets me give and receive it in more heartfelt earnesty. What does that even mean? Look, I think pushing respectful discussions is a good thing.
Yes, of course.
And I don't even care if this is the theme of the game. It's an argument game. But we're pretending that this game is important.
Right.
And it's not. Now, gameplay-wise, I think this game is okay.
Right.
It's about getting 3 in a row, which unfortunately is really easy. But unfortunately, I mean, you can put these pieces out. So almost from turn 2, it is a game of, I have to stop you.
Yes, it very much feels like player number 2 is defending immediately.
Until you can... Maybe with a piece play, a clever piece play, I now have reversed the situation, and now you're going to stop me until eventually one of us wins. It's not a very long game.
Yes.
The game is a 6 for me, but the pretentiousness on this one is like a 9 for me. It's just so, again, I think an argument game, I'm actually interested in a debate game.
Sure.
This is not that, though, and that even comes with extra pieces.
Right, you can get these extra pieces here to play with more players. They're the same thing, they're just different colors. As you can tell, these aren't even open because it's just the same thing.
Yeah, they're just different colors. I really found the symbolism a little confusing because one is the piece you're pointing at, the other is how you push it, and just you would have to sit there and put down the piece and go, okay, this one's pointing at this one, and then it moves it that way. It's not as...
You could have a cascading thing.
Yeah.
If you push a piece into another location that it is being pointed at, it will move again.
Which is cool,
yeah,
but it's almost
concept.
It's almost app.
Yes, like if the app for this game was out, I would mess with it for about 5 minutes and then be like, yeah, that's kind of neat, and I would move on.
What would you give this?
The game gets a 5 from me. I think it's all right. It's a very average abstract game. Certainly feels like things I've seen before, and there was no hook here. The coolest thing I can say about it is I like that you put the pieces in the center. You can only introduce pieces in the center.
Sure.
And they kind of get pushed out, and if they get pushed too far, they fall off.
Right.
It's sort of a reverse GIF, where you have to introduce the pieces from the outside, and they get pushed into the middle. That's kind of cool. As far as the pretentiousness rating, I'm with you. This one gets a 9 out of 10. They had the audacity to include a piece, an incredibly well-made piece, that is meaningless and is there to be given as a sign of respect to the other player. Has anyone ever played this game and given that piece in earnest, without laughing, without it being funny, without it being sort of like, okay, I respect you? Like, really?
Yeah, it's weird, and it's not like this move has... It's not like this game has the thing where I put a piece out and I'm like, oh my word. It's such a short game. It's like playing tic-tac-toe. It's not that simple, right? But if in tic-tac-toe you put the X in the middle, I'm like, why? It's almost laughable. And we're trying, and here's the thing.
That's what I'm
folks.
saying. Like, I respect my opponents in every game. And sometimes they make really good moves. But if that game, I don't care what the game is, had a specific piece in it that said, when your opponent makes a good move, give this to them and tell them you respect them. And make sure you don't pass it too frequently, okay? Like maybe once in the game. And then have them sit with it and really think about, you gave them this thing. I'm sorry, that is beyond self-important.
Yeah, it's a little weird. But here's the thing. At least it gives you the piece. So Quinn...
Let's talk about Quinn, baby.
Which is the last one here. So this is a game about light particles. And this is one of those games that almost feels like it came out in the 70s. In the 70s, there was a trend of, I call it the mastermind trend. Remember the mastermind trend where there would be this well-dressed guy
sitting
and
in a chair
woman
like
leaning
this.
over his shoulder, and it's like, that's what you are when you play this game. That's what Quinn feels like. And in Quinn, in one of their rule books, and they have a pretty bad rule book. This is unbelievable. This is the actual rule book. They have this quick start that actually doesn't tell you how to play the game. It tells you a little bit. I think you could guess how the game is played from here, but it's not exacting.
Right.
But happily, they've included a 94-page rule book here. That's not a joke.
Right.
94 pages.
It looks like a pamphlet that comes like. Did you ever buy one of those like Nikon cameras back in the 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, baby. It came with one of these.
So in this game, they tell you to bring a totem to the table. Anything you want. They show a stuffed animal, and some actual totems. And you bring that to the table, and that represents you, they're saying. Mm-hmm. So I used the Kool-Aid Man that's in our background here. I guess you can't see it, but...
Where is he?
Back there, the Kool-Aid Man. There you go.
This is Tom's totem.
I was the Kool-Aid Man. Okay, but again, and they're acting here like this is you. This is important, right? And then you use this actually as a gameplay function to resurrect some of your pieces. Now, this game has really weird, interesting pieces. They're these tall pieces like this with a strong magnet on them. The board itself is magnetic, and that I thought was pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, you're going to get to move these around the board. But once you start looking at the board, a lot of the rulebook explains how you can move from one section to the other because it's not obvious at all.
Right.
And the rulebook is pretty dreadful in its explanations of this, and they keep interspersing it with, nonsense, talking about light particles, and they even tell you that here at the beginning. There's this whole thing about light, and this is the other thing. This is about light and particles, but it's also fantasy.
This game, to me, reads and feels like the last act of a person who is going mad. Yeah. I'm serious. Like, to me, this feels like you walk into someone's room after they passed away, and the walls are filled with scribbles, and this is the last thing they made, and it's sitting there spread out, and there's all these artifacts, and these things come out, and you can replace what goes in here, and it's all scribbles or symbols or weird little, and then the magnets, and the whole thing feels, again, like a mixture between an alien thing, artifact, and somebody's final act as they are between sanity and losing it.
Yeah, this one on step 1 is about... They have some steps here. Step 4, and this is, again, part of the rules.
This is in the rules, right.
Now do a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and drink a small cup of H2O. They don't even call it water.
No. Why would you?
Whoever finishes first decides who goes first. Alternate turns, you can, and then it talks about the game itself. And that was just kind of a weird thing to throw in there. Like, it's like you better hydrate when you play this game. But that's actually in the rules.
Yes.
Now, the game itself, for lack of a better thing, is mostly a fancy, weird version of Stratego. You're trying to capture a piece from your opponent.
Right, these, and you can only see, only you can see the side facing you, right?
But you will attack your opponent and then reveal, and honestly, I want to be really clear. Like, for gameplay, this is like a 3, maybe a 2 for me. Mm-hmm. I really dislike the gameplay on this. There's this long sheet here that shows you what all these powers do on symbols that don't particularly look that different. And they all have such weird rules that this is not enough for these pieces.
Right.
You have to go in here and look at them. And again, they keep mixing it with the theming of it. There's so many terms in this game. It's like, here, the peripheral can cross the horizon, slingshot other pieces, move at diagonals, and capture shadows. That is a crazy sentence to hear when I'm going through the game. I'm like,
yeah, and that's just one. Like,
what?
literally, you can open to anywhere in this rulebook and find stuff like this. I kid you not. The symbols, like you said, they're not that different. I actually think they're very different. They're just not descriptive. The symbols aren't descriptive. You got the reflector over here. It looks like a little lightning bolt symbol with a circle. And then artificial light. It looks like a weird 6-pack. Time is a mask. What?
Yeah, but again, and then there were so many things we would be like, can you do this? Some of the things you could do it anytime you want. There's also stupid things in the game, like I can redo a move you just did.
Yes.
I think that's what the time does,
that's
right?
That's what time apparently is. We're not quite sure how it works, but yes.
Oh no, and there's just so much in it. So honestly, this game is I don't know who the game is for, right? The game is kind of all over the place. So I'm giving the game a really low score because it's almost unplayable out of the box in the sense that you get this quick start guide, which you would think, and step 1, it tells you to pick a piece and replace any other piece, which for your first game, you're like, I don't know. Then place your piece out on the board. You're like, I don't know. And then start playing, and it barely explains that.
Yeah.
It tells you to move them, and you're like, where can I move it? And only by piecing together, it's like an escape room game. Well, this is I can do this, and this over here. Oh, that's what the horizon is.
Oh, you can't cross
kind of figure this out.
There's a little area here with a dot that you can't cross, but it's not obvious.
Yeah, so for me, like gameplay 2, 3, pretentiousness, I'm giving it an 8. I mean, it feels almost more, the way it looks is ridiculous. It's definitely made to be like, the game is made to look cool. And I'm not even necessarily opposed to that.
Right.
That made to look cool. And I don't even hate these long pieces.
Sure.
I also think it's cool that you have your own board that they're on.
They're also magnetic,
neat.
right.
But then not being able to see what they do and understand them, it's so dense, but it feels like it's dense on purpose.
Yeah.
Like it's sitting there, like we were reading their reviews, and almost all of them said Stratego on steroids and things like that.
Yes.
That was kind of a common thread.
Yeah, they got the drug wrong. It's Stratego on something, all right, but it's not steroids.
So, I don't know, this game makes me feel like if I play this and I understand it, I'm better than you. And I don't like that.
Right. I'm giving the game a 2. It gets a 2 because of the magnets. I'm serious.
As opposed to a 1.
As opposed to a 1, yeah. If it didn't have the magnets, it would get a 1. And I should probably apologize in case the person who made this game actually is going insane. If so, then I apologize, because if you're not, then I don't understand how we got to this point.
I think that they were trying to make some sort of magnus opus. It feels like an attempt for someone to do that.
I agree. And maybe, again, it works for someone. I always assume that a game works for somebody. I always do.
Yeah.
For me, this feels like, again, you sometimes watch a movie, somebody's magnum opus, or you read a book and you go, how did this go so astray? How did they get to this point? Do you know what I mean? That's what this feels like to me. More than maybe any other game I've ever played, honestly. So I could see this being the thing they've been working on for a long time. But it is so off center. It is so just feels like the ramblings of a madman. And the pretentiousness rating, I think, goes hand in hand with that. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 when it comes to pretentiousness. It is pseudo-scientific, pseudo-fantastical. It's like, again, you clicked and read an article on Wikipedia about light particles, and you think you're an expert now and put it in a board game.
But it's also fantasy, though.
But it's like fantastical too. None of it seems to have a good grasp on what it's trying to say. The whole thing is incredibly pretentious, filled with words that don't need to be there, filled with word choices designed to make you feel dumber as you read them. Again, the whole thing is incredibly pretentious. The cover, the look, the vibe. The company publishing is called Arch and Gravity Publishing. What?
Well, here's the thing, folks. I'm not here. I mean, we're poking a little bit of fun to some degree. I'm not here necessarily to mock these games. I mean, that by very nature we are. But I like the board gaming hobby. And you've said this for years. We talk about board games are toys.
They are toys.
They really are. And I think board games do a lot of great things. They bring people together.
Yes.
They have helped families come closer together. They allow us to have discussions that we might not have otherwise. I think they're a good thing for the human race.
Yes.
But we mustn't pretend that there's something else. Mm-hmm. This game isn't changing lives. And I think when we bring out games like these, the ones that, oh, look at this, and we act all kind of self-important playing these, I think we're doing the hobby a disservice by that, because we're acting in this manner that when other people see it, they're like, I don't want to be part of that.
Sure.
And it's like people walking around hoity-toity, like this hat, hoity-toity hat, pretending to be something, and other people look at them and go, the emperor has no clothes.
Right.
And that's what I'm talking about with these. I think these companies put effort into these games. All of them are pretty good quality.
They are all good productions.
They are that. And especially with Philosophy and A Gentle Rain, I think they put effort into the games. They're just not for me necessarily.
Sure. And I think they all could benefit from self-reflection, honestly, and maybe a little slice of humble pie, a little, humor, a little self-awareness, perhaps.
It is possible, too, that all these games are also doing this as a marketing stunt completely.
Sure.
And there's people out there who are like, oh, I will play this because then, you feel better. This is the kind of game you put on your shelf. Oh,
Sure.
I'm not playing these again. And here's the thing. For all these companies, I don't know about Quinn, but the other two, the Quality Beast has made games. I'll try them out. And Incredible Dream, I love their other games, so I'll look at the next one. So this isn't like I'm not smashing all these publishers and designers and things. It's just how these games made us feel. And they wanted us to feel one way, but it felt like they were forcing us to try to feel that way. That's a weird thing for a game to do.
It's like a funny party game that makes you do dumb things as opposed to allow dumb things to happen.
Yes.
Or silly things. These are that way. Sometimes I play abstracts and I feel these emotions that they're pushing for. But they're not telling me, step 1, feel this. Step 2, drink this. They're not making you. These things come forth naturally. That's the sweet spot. That's where you want to be.
Well, there you go, folks. That's 3 different abstracts that we found pretentious. You might feel very differently. Well, the comments, go for it. Tell people if you like them or not. Yeah. Maybe you know other games in the same genre. And, either way, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Zee Garcia.
We'll see you next time.
I respect you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. And you can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.